So Conor McGregor goes after Donald Trump because Donald Trump flat out said that his favorite fighter is Khabib. Conor McGregor, if Tupac Shakur was alive, he wouldn't like you, Mr. Notorious Conor McGregor, right? He wouldn't like you for that reason alone because it seems that your favorite rapper is Biggie. Now, keep in mind, I have seen Conor McGregor do training videos and ride around in Santa Monica and Venice Beach playing Tupac in his car. So, what does that tell you? That tells you that perhaps maybe Biggie is his favorite rapper, but it doesn't mean that you don't like Tupac as well. In fact, there's a lot of people that like Biggie, but also like Pac. There are people who like Tupac, but also like Biggie. And then, of course, there are people who have one side of that argument, meaning that they only support Tupac and not Biggie or the other way around. Why? Maybe perhaps because of regional ties. That could be one reason. But Conor McGregor is not an American. He doesn't live in the East or West Coast, doesn't represent any of it. So therefore, he would be in the right to support two guys. Which brings me to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is allowed to like Khabib as much as he is allowed to like Conor McGregor. In fact, me personally, I'm Team Khabib all the way. There's no doubt about that. I'm not going to hide that in any capacity. But guess what? I also like Conor McGregor. I also enjoy his content. I also enjoy his fights. I also enjoy him getting on the mic and the appearances that he makes in BKFC. And on top of the catalog that he's built up in the UFC in the past decade. I love all of that because I'm a true MMA fan. Now, it doesn't mean that Donald Trump doesn't like Conor McGregor either. I'm sure he does. If you're a fight fan, you're going to like Conor McGregor and Khabib for various reasons. If you are a hip-hop fan, for the most part, you're going to like Biggie and Tupac, unless, of course, you have no regional affiliations with any of those two, nor do you have a circumference of being part of that era. In other words, you're too young to really have a say or have an opinion on the matter. But Donald Trump has the right to like Khabib. But you got to understand something. The fight game is full of people that come from honor cultures. In other words, the minute you insult me, I'm going to get back at you and insult you straight away. The minute that you stand against me, I'm going to stand against you in a way that is going to be disrespectful, that is going to be very demeaning, and to the point of undermining everything that you do. So this is the reality of combat sports, its athletes, and people that live that type of life. And when I mean that type of life, I don't just mean being a fighter or being a gangster or anything like that. It's all of the above. It's an honor culture. So this is why Conor McGregor said to Donald Trump, man, elections is coming up. This is going to somehow affect you in a negative way. As if people who really care about the subject of America and its future are going to predicate their vote based on a candidate's choice of fighters that they like in the UFC. But that is the mind of Conor McGregor. That is how he feels about this particular subject. And I got to be honest with you. I think you're wrong. And the reason being is because, well, obviously you're biased because you have an enemy in Khabib and you're going to be determined to deter him in any kind of capacity and literally laugh at his downfall, which is what's going on right now with the Russian tax scandal going on with Khabib. As you've seen, Conor McGregor made references to that, saying that, oh, well, he's a terrorist, he's housed these types of people, saying something to the effect of, well, why is it that his father was not able to come to the United States? And That's a good point. But does it have anything to do with terrorism? The reality is we don't know. However, it is an important question to ask. Conor throws it out there, and it is a good question because we don't really know. But he's going to make assumptions. He's going to make accusations that's going to fit the narrative and the agenda that he is trying to fit the puzzle into. Meaning that, okay, you know what? Maybe this guy really is part of a terrorist organization. But we don't know that. Because if he was, then the Russians would, come hell or high water, go after Khabib and arrest him. They didn't do that. All they had problems with Khabib was the tax issues. And the fact that he chose to become a citizen of the UAE, to which he now has no taxes in the money that he makes, right? So, I don't know if any of that is related, and we don't know, but understand this. Let's talk about politics for a second. I think Conor McGregor, I'm sorry, I meant Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump did the right thing by saying that in a political matter. Let me explain to you why. Right now, the left is losing Muslim supporters. The Democrats are losing Muslim supporters. And that's for several reasons. Some of the reasons is because of the curriculum that you teach in American schools that is absolutely contrasting of Islamic values. So as a result, Muslim Americans, who, by the way, many of them are Khabib fans, are going to look to Donald Trump. And for Donald Trump to say that Khabib is his favorite fighter, I got to be honest with you, that's going to solidify votes for the Muslim population. And here's another thing that you have to understand. Many Muslims don't go and vote, and I can explain to you right now why. For one, the reason why many Muslims don't vote is because they believe that it is kuffar, it is the way of the disbeliever, that we only allow Allah to legislate our laws and not man. So participating in such is committing a sin against the methods of Tawheed, monotheism. That's how deep it goes. But there are a lot of Muslims that are not versed in these particular matters. They don't really understand a lot of the Islamic doctrines and the rules and the reasons behind these rules. So many of them are going to do exactly what everybody else does, which is vote. And by Donald Trump doing that, it only creates a better relationship with him in the Muslim community, considering that back in 2016, he's said some many horrible comments about Muslims and Mexicans as well regarding the border issues and whatnot. So, you got to understand, he has to campaign like most politicians. He has to make himself look good. But also, you got to understand, Donald Trump shoots from the hip, says what he wants, and says what he feels. So if he feels that Khabib is the greatest fighter ever, and that is his favorite guy, well, he has the right to do that as a mixed martial arts fan. Yes, he's a former president who's trying to become a president again, but it doesn't mean that he's not a fan like the rest of us and has an opinion that he has the right to choose who his favorite fighter is. And let me address this lastly. You want to know why Khabib is his favorite fighter? It goes back to Colby Covington, and no, it has nothing to do with the style of wrestling. It has more to do with the aspect of the fact that he wins. So how does Colby Covington relate to this? Look at the Colby Covington-Leon Edwards fight, how he lost to Leon Edwards. What happened? Trump left before Colby could even get on the mic and make a post-fight speech, which, by the way, they normally don't give to the losers of the fight, but rather only if, let's say, they went to a decision or if they are the main event. And in this case, he got on the mic, but Donald Trump left. He wasn't hearing any of it. He's like, you lost. I'm only here for the winners. And that's just how Donald Trump's personality is. Donald Trump, whether you like him or not, is the type of guy that will only roll with the winners and will disregard the losers, because he is the same guy that said to John McCain, I like the people that get captured. I like the people that don't get captured, not the ones that do. As if being a POW is somehow a failure to your military career, but that's how Donald Trump views the world. Winners and losers. And you can't deny that Khabib is the biggest winner of them all. Sure, is Conor more rich than Khabib? Yes. But legacy-wise, who has the better portfolio and resume? You can argue Conor does, based on the fact that he knocked Aldo out in 13 seconds. You can argue that McGregor has had more meaningful fights and meaningful rematches in ways that Khabib hasn't. But by the end of the day, they both already fought each other. And what was the result of that? 4th round submission to Khabib, where many people cite Conor McGregor as quitting. But by the end of it, Conor somehow was able to twist that whole entire fight as to say, hey, you know what? I got the last blow of the fight, of the night. Why? Because obviously there was a riot that ensued. All of Khabib's guys went in the cage, jumped him, beat him up, but then he also got some licks in there as well, where he did punch Zubaira, from what I remember. Either way, Conor is so good at creating narratives for himself. He lost the fight. No one in history I have ever seen lose a fight yet look like the winner, or the person that is close to the winner at any capacity, in the way Conor McGregor did for the Khabib fight. Until this day, he still uses any narrative or any type of blowback he can push towards Khabib to make him look bad, just to distract people from the reality that he got choked in the 4th round and literally gave up against Khabib. Now, why do I say give up? Well, let's talk technical for a second. What he got on Conor was nothing more than a crank. And for those guys who train jiu-jitsu, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know the difference between a clear choke and a crank. And the way that Khabib had his biceps wrapped around the chin of Conor, well, that's classified as a crank, not a choke. If you got a rear naked right underneath the neck, and you got the bicep underneath there, and you got it squeezed with both your hands clamped together while you're choking, that's a choke, okay? Once it hits your throat. He didn't do that. So therefore, a lot of people cite the idea that Khabib made him quit because he could have fought out, or at least tried to push his arm out against Khabib, but maybe perhaps Khabib's overwhelming pace really tested Conor McGregor's cardio, to which he wasn't able to keep up against that level of intensity. And therefore, the lactic acid that built up in his arms, he was not able to fight the hands off, because any jiu-jitsu instructor or black belt will tell you, you want to get out of a rear naked choke, you got to have a 2-on-1 position in one of your opponent's hands that's behind you. He didn't do that. He knows that he should have done that, but he couldn't because of the lactic acid that built up in his arms based on the pace that Khabib put on in that fight. And that is the reason why people said that he gave up. But even with that, he managed to create his own narrative for the world. And he still is continuing to do that till this day, while using Donald Trump's current presidential campaign as a way of sort of conveying that message. So Michael Chandler, good old Michael Chandler, fires back at Conor McGregor. He says to him, Donald Trump got more balls than you because of the fact that he got shot, survived, and still the next day he went on to go to his Wisconsin rally or wherever he was supposed to be the next day. Either way, Conor McGregor did not answer the call because of the fact that he had a broken toe. Now, that right there is a separate argument in and of itself. Here's what I'll say to that. What I can say to that is the fact that Conor McGregor is on a losing streak. And he has to be very careful about how he's going to move for his next fight. He has to be very assured. Let's give Conor some credit. He went out there and fought injured plenty of times. Chad Mendes fight, he did very good. Jose Aldo fight, 13 seconds. Khabib, he had a broken toe once again. We saw the result of that as I've talked about it in detail in this video. He wants to go in there 100%. And I think I can understand from an athletic perspective why Conor is doing that. Look at what he did with Donald Cerrone. No injuries. Was ready to go. Healthy. Walked in there. No drinking in his camp. Was just absolutely prepared to the max. Okay? How did he do? 40-second knockout. That's what Conor McGregor is looking to do with Michael Chandler. So therefore, it's hard for us to blame him not taking this fight. And to equate the idea of going into a rally the next day after getting shot at is a little bit different than the competitive nature that is involved in MMA and taking a risk while you're injured. That's the reality of this whole entire video. There's political matters. There's matters that can give you an objective point of view as to what is the right choice to make in times like this where you got a broken toe. And also talking about narratives and agendas that Conor spews, which, by the way, is really no different in the world of Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. So that is all that I have for you in this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will see you guys in the next content to come, inshallah.